Okay, it's Q&A time. So if you are new to us, we are Empowered Abundance. We teach a model called M-Free. It rests on the presupposition that we are made in the image of God, 100% human, 100% spirit, two sides to one coin. And within Empowered Abundance, we have a collective. It's an amazing group of beautiful humans that desire to come together and support and love each other while we learn to create the life of our dreams. And one of the things that happens in the container is every Monday we ask questions and then I get to answer them. And this is super fun for me. And what's really cool is usually the questions, I can generalize them enough that everybody gets the benefit of the question and the answer. So this question is, the more I learn to get out of my own story, the less patience I feel I have for others in theirs. How do I know when to give them grace and when to invite them into something more, i.e. not living in their victim? So there's kind of two questions in that. So the first one is, how do I know when to give them grace and when to invite them into something more? If they haven't asked you, then don't invite them into more. Give them grace. If they ask you, hey, what would you do with this? Hey, what do you think about my story? Hey, do you have any advice for me? Then you can invite them into something new because they're open to it. But if they're in their story and they don't ask you, the only option you have is to give them grace, because otherwise it's like trying to force feed somebody something that they haven't asked for. Okay. The other part is, and this is the fun part, the other part is the more I get out of my story, the less patience I have for other people in their story. Okay. So a lot of times when we have emotions like frustration or impatience or irritation, it's an indicator first and foremost, right? So the minute that we recognize, ooh, I'm impatient with this person, okay, stop and recognize that one, you've evolved into a greater consciousness than you were in before it was irritating to you to listen to other people's stories, right? Because when we're all living in that victim identity, we all like to be in each other's stories. It's fun to play in the realm of victim identity, right? As we evolve, though, into our power identity, our Christ consciousness, then we're stepping out of that victim mentality. And now the things that we used to tolerate are not tolerable. And so one of the things that is first and foremost is to go, oh, my impatience, my irritation doesn't have anything to do with them. It has to do with me not owning that I've stepped into a greater level of consciousness, because now something that didn't bother me before, I notice. Cool. Then when we assert to ourselves, wow, I've grown. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. And now we can look at the other person and go, oh, okay, they're still in their victim identity. And let's just compare this to if you're in high school and you're doing calculus and you become a tutor for third grade math, right? You don't get caught up, you don't get impatient with the person learning third grade math, whatever that is, division and subtraction, right? I mean, I guess you could, however, then you wouldn't be a very good tutor. So in this analogy, you're not getting frustrated. Why? Because you actually own the fact that you've evolved in your understanding of math. So much so you're like, ooh, I want to help this person because they've asked for it. FYI, they've asked for it. Okay. I want to help this person with their math, right? But if we recognize the person who's in their story isn't in their story because something's wrong with them, they're in their story because they haven't evolved yet. So now the grace that we give them is because we go, oh, they just haven't evolved yet. Nothing's wrong with them. They just haven't evolved yet. They haven't learned what I've already learned. Right. And so if at that point, there is the possibility that your frustration goes away, that your impatience goes away, because now you're owning your growth. You're recognizing that the only reason they're in their story is because they haven't grown. Now, if you're still irritated, that might be an indicator like, okay, I'm just not supposed to be like in a conversation with this person. I'm supposed to say, oh, you know what? Gosh, excuse me, I gotta go. Excuse me. I've got to like, I've got to go, right? Whatever that is to like end your ability to sit there. Because guys, here's what happens. Sometimes we try to give grace and stay irritated. But if I'm irritated, that's not grace. If I'm irritated, they're feeling my irritation. And then guess what? It's actually perpetuating the very thing that we're irritated by. What is that? Well, they're victim, right? Because as I sit here and be irritated with somebody, I am projecting that something's wrong with them. They haven't evolved, blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually victimizing them again. So that's not grace, right? And I'm not saying this person was doing any of that. I'm just answering this one specific question in a more extended way. Okay, to fully explain like the difference between, oh, I'm owning my stuff, the irritation goes away. Oh, I'm seeing that they just haven't grown, the irritation goes away. If I need to get up and leave, right? But the one thing I just want you to understand is grace isn't sitting in your irritation of somebody else's non-growth. Okay. The kindest thing you can do to that person is go, you know what? I am so sorry. I've got to go. And they're like, what? We just sat down. Ah, I know. I've really got to go. Well, how come? Well, I just got to go. You don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe anybody an explanation, right? But the kindest thing you can do is get up and leave, unless they go, actually, I'd really like your feedback on my situation. Well, then stay and then do what she asked, like invite them into something new. Yeah. All right, you guys. If you have questions, I'd love to hear them. Put them in the comments below, and I would be happy to make you a video as well.